Hi, my name is William. I'm a personal trainer from TSquared Lab, and today we will be talking about delts. So, delts is the muscles around the shoulder. It's basically a ball and socket joint that connects your arm to the trunk of your body. So, the deltoids muscle help you to move arms in different directions and also help to protect and stabilize your shoulder joint. So, like most other muscles in your body, the deltoids are skeletal muscles. Tendons attach them to the bone. And skeletal muscles are voluntary muscles, meaning you choose to move them. So skeletal muscles are different than smooth or involuntary muscles such as your heart that work without you having to think about it. So before we move on, let's talk about the function of the delt muscles. Your deltoid muscles work alongside your other shoulder muscles such as the rotator cuff muscles to help you perform a variety of movements. So deltoid muscles function usually involves arm abduction, meaning you raise your arm out to the side of your body, like so, and flexion. Flexion is basically just going up as high as you can. And extension, which is to the back, yeah, behind the body. So where does the delt muscle connect? So it crowns the shoulder. It covers the front, side, and back of the joint. So these muscles are superficial. Superficial means it's basically close to the surface of the skin. So if you are lean enough, you'll be able to see the striations of the muscle. And what it looks like is basically an upside down triangle. So the tendons connect each of the three sides to the bone. The base of the deltoids connect to the upper part of your scapula, which is the shoulder blade, and the side of the clavicle, the collarbone. And the point of the deltoids that attaches to the side of the humerus, which is the lateral head, which is the arm bone between your shoulder and elbow. That's where it connects. Okay, so the deltoid muscles have three parts, or we could say three heads. So the first head is called anterior deltoid, which is the front. So the front delts that help move your arm forward, they connect to your clavicle. So this is basically shoulder flexion. And the lateral deltoids, which is the side delts that help move your arm out to the side as well as up and down. They basically connect to the acromion, which is a bony knob on your shoulder blade. And last but not least, the posterior deltoids, which is the rear delts that help move your arm backward. They connect to the flat surface of your shoulder blade. So before we move into the exercise selections, we want to talk about the considerations behind the exercise selections in this video. So we choose exercises that have the most bang for your buck. And when I say most bang for your buck, meaning the most tension that is to the muscle. So we can call it the main movements of the training program. So these exercises you have good mechanics to move the joints through authentic motions, which leads to maximum loading of the tissue that is being trained while minimizing stress on the connective tissues, joints, or smaller supportive musculature. Or in other words, you can grow without getting injured. So let's start with the rear delts. And for rear delts, we want to exercise that has the most bang for your buck. So that will be the rear delt row. So compared to other exercises such as the rear delt fly or reverse pec deck fly, the rear delt row proves to be the most bang for your buck in terms of force production of the muscle at the shortened position. So first we need to identify the difference between a row for rear delts versus a row for lats or upper back. For lats, there will be less scapular movement. It will involve tracking the elbows along with the lats, which means the focus should be on how the elbows move. For the upper back, you want to move the scapula as much as possible. And what it means is you want to have as much retraction as possible. This is because the upper back muscles attach directly to the shoulder blades. So you have to move the scapula as much as possible when you do a rowing motion. So finally, we go to the rear delts. Rear delts would be pulling the elbows as far behind the torso as possible in order to fully shorten the rear delt muscles. In other words, as much shoulder extension as possible. So scapular movement is not important for this exercise, for rear delts, because the focus is maximal shoulder extension. So maximum shoulder extension doesn't mean that you will retract the scapula as much as you want, as compared to when you are doing an upper back rowing motion. Next, let's move on to the lateral head of the muscle, which is the side delt. Yeah. So let's talk about common mistakes first. So common mistakes would be what I would call raise with a T shape. So let's call it T raise. So the problem with this exercise is that people will tend to feel more traps or neck compared to the delts. Yeah. Why? Because in that position, if dumbbells is the tool that is used, in that position, the traps are more aligned with the resistance from the dumbbell. So it almost becomes the primary movers, and the delts become secondary, meaning in terms of feeling, in terms of mind-muscle connection, you will feel the trap more compared to the delts. And the second problem is the tendency to externally rotate the arms in order to go into contracting the lateral delt fully. And this is a natural occurrence. It will occur during fatigue. Yeah. And what it does is when you externally rotate the arm, you will put the anterior delt on top. So the anterior delt becomes the main delt that you're training for, and the traps. Yeah. So what bodybuilders usually do to counter this is usually they internally rotate their arms in order to put the lateral head on top. Yeah, but this goes against your body's natural biomechanics. Yeah, while you are standing. The solution to this will be the chest-supported dumbbell Y raise. So the main reason for this exercise is due to a few reasons. First one is stability. And the second one is that it puts the lateral delt on top without having to purposely go into internal rotation, right? And stability is very important for increasing force production of the intended muscle that you want to train. And this is because if, let's say, you are bending forward in order to line up the resistance of the dumbbell, you would have to use a lot of core strength. And when you fail, it won't be the failure of the lateral head of the muscle. It will be failure of maybe your core or your legs or your hamstring, for example. So chest-supported Y raise will provide that kind of stability. And in this position, the traps are less advantageous now because it becomes secondary. Yeah, and it will be a good position to stabilize the shoulder. And furthermore, when you raise up in a Y shape, which is technically in front of you, there will be more lower trap involvement compared to the upper trap. Yeah, if you do it right. So there are a few cues to do this exercise right. So the one cue that most people don't know of, which is to not try to change the natural, we call it scapular-humeral rhythm. It's basically the way the scapula will move according to which movement that you do. So the key is to just don't do any changes to your scapula. Just raise it in a Y shape naturally, and you should be all good. Yeah, this is because one restriction leads to the other. If you try to make sure that your scapula don't move, basically you try to just retract and hold it there, what happens is your arm will lose the ability to go further up or further forward. Because in order to move the arm up or down, you need to have scapular movement. Yeah. Okay, next let's talk about the anterior delts. So before we go into that, let's talk about the common mistakes that's done usually for the anterior delts. And this will be applied to anterior shoulder press. So the common mistakes is basically pressing in the frontal plane. Basically it means out to the side, 90 degrees, flaring the elbows out. So the problem with this press is we have something called the subacromial space. So this is the space above the shoulder's glenohumeral joint, which is the ball and socket joint, and it's right below the acromion. So soft tissues such as the bicep tendon, rotator cuff, and bursa is located in this space. And what happens when you overhead press while flaring the elbows out to the side completely is that, or let's say you're doing the T raise that we talked about before this, right? This space decreases more as compared to doing so at the scapular plane. So what it does is it will increase the risk of shoulder impingement, and basically, even if you don't feel the pain, it's just a matter of time until until you actually get shoulder impingement pain. Yeah. So shoulder pressing would be, in the scapular plane, would be about 30 degrees out to the front of adduction. Yeah. And the range of motion performed in the scapular plane enables proper shoulder joint alignment. So in other words, it means you get to press as heavy as you can without getting injured. And also the scapula can move naturally with more space to perform upwards rotation and elevation as it rotates around the rib cage as you press. While you can't do this if you flare your elbows out to the side, which is in the frontal plane. In conclusion, the frontal anterior shoulder press in the scapular plane lengthens the anterior deltoid more effectively and allows for more authentic scapular movement, and it also decreases shoulder impingement. So that's why you should press, you should do your shoulder press in the scapular plane. Yeah, so in conclusion, the setup always comes first before execution in any type of exercise. If you would have to make a lot of adjustments doing a certain exercise, it means that your setup is not good. Because usually if the setup is good, you should be able to execute a movement with no difficulty whatsoever. Yeah, and this is all to increase force production within the muscle that you are intended to train. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this helps with your delt training, and please stay tuned for more.